What's up everyone and welcome to another video on Unity. My name is Vinay and you're watching the Lazy Indian Techies YouTube video. Now today we're going to be talking about events, also commonly known as the observer pattern. Now we're not going to go in depth into how the whole thing works in terms of the different options, but I'm going to show you a simple way of implementing an event system in your game, right? So if you didn't know, I put out videos on game development. I also have another channel called the Lazy Indian Gamer, where I play games and put walkthroughs of those games out. So do check that channel out as well. And if you're new here, do hit that subscribe button before we get started. It definitely helps my channel grow. So now, to give you a brief gist on what event systems are, most of us are kind of used to creating Unity games or working with Unity and kind of tightly coupling our scripts, right? We have a reference when you want to talk from one game object to another game object. You kind of have to create like a private or public reference and serialize it and then kind of connect it in the inspector. And there's a lot of uh, stuff that's going on, which we call coupling, tightly coupling stuff. So the whole point of an observer system or a system where you don't kind of hard tie two objects together is known as an observer system, or that's why we use events. Now, what do I mean by an observer system? An observer system is nothing but you can think of it as, say, a social media influencer, right? So there is one person who is like this influencer. Think of a game object as the influencer, and then you have a lot of people who are following or subscribing to that influencer, right? So that's how, in a very layman's terms, an observer system works. Those people who are subscribing are observers, and there is one game object that is broadcasting stuff. Now, when I say one, you don't have to have just one game object broadcasting stuff. It can be every other component in your game. So basically, there are influencers, which are game objects that are broadcasting their actions within the game. And then you have other listeners. It could be menus, it could be a pause menu and stuff like that are kind of sitting there and listening and saying, hey, when you are doing this, I'm going to do this, right? So instead of having references where you're going to, or creating singletons or various things that you have to do to kind of tightly couple those things together, this is a good way of kind of decoupling, which is always a good practice, and then having the messaging still work across. So without further ado, let me just get started on this and just show you how it actually works. I'm going to use very simple examples. As you can see here, I have opened like the standard assets with the playground scene. If you don't know how to get this, I will create another video and probably link that. It comes pre-made as a template anyways, called the third person assets. And it's part of Unity's system. If I'll just run this for you and show you, it's got a basic just controller script that helps you run around, and we're going to be working off the base scene, right? So now I'm just going to go ahead and create an object here, right? So it's always a good idea to organize your scene. So I'm just going to call this like collectibles, because I'm going to be dropping in a few collectibles here, right? And let's go ahead and add a sphere. All right, call it collectible underscore one, and I'm going to change my layout. I found that this is a very good way of setting up your screen. I'm trying to find, yeah, professional. Right, so this helps you kind of, this is a good optimized layout. If you want to replicate this, you can replicate it, but it gives you quick access to all your stuff without being too much of a pain. You can see your game window, and you can also see your scene window here, right? So quick tip, you can double click on the game object to quickly move your camera there. I've made another video on this, and I'm going to just, let's see, scale this, and I'm going to hit shift and space so I go full screen on this, and I'm going to hit the E key to scale this down. This is just going to work as a rough pickup. I'm not going to add too many materials. The whole point is not to actually make a game, but Yeah, and then let's duplicate this a bunch of times. I'm going to call this collectible 2, 3, 4. All right. And let's go ahead and kind of move these over so you can actually run around and collect them. All right. I think that should do. Now, what I'm going to do here is go ahead and create a, a script, which is the only purpose of this script is to kind of tell this broadcasting event saying I have been picked up, right? Okay, so let's do that. So collectible pickup script. So we have a script that we attach to these collectibles. And wait for Unity to start it up. Now, the one other thing I want to kind of say here is the moment you create a script, normally it gets added to just the folder under assets. It's the main folder. I always like to kind of create a scripts folder, or you can even create a folder based on like the collectibles. So let's go ahead and do that. Collectible, right? I'm going to create a folder called collectibles, and under that I'm going to create a folder called scripts. Scripts. So this kind of helps keep things organized. And if you want to export this later on, it also has a self-contained like folder with all the objects in it. And let me actually go ahead and create a prefabs folder. Yeah. Because I've added a script to this, I will create a folder called prefabs. And I'm going to drag and drop this particular collectible into prefab folder. Now let me rename that collectible. Right. Let's get rid of these and replicate this a few more times and rename them accordingly. All right. So we'll probably have to place these again. So if you want to know how I'm kind of maintaining the same plane, I'm clicking and dragging this handle here, and you can see that it only moves in these axes. So that's a good way to kind of move your stuff around. I made another video on it again, so check that video to get an idea. Now, let me actually go ahead and open up the script, which is going to take a couple of seconds to pop up. And yeah, there. First time you launch Visual Studio, it always takes a while to pop up. So what are you going to do? Yeah, there you go. So now we're going to get rid of the start and update methods because we don't need that here. And so we have this collectible pickup script. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to put a comment here. It's always good to put comments here, so you know when you come back later on, even if someone else is working with you, they know what this script is doing. I am going to broadcast an event when I am picked up. Okay, that's just stuff you can be more specific about it. Now, the quickest way of implementing events here is something called actions. So you can create a static event called an action and then actually assign a parameter to it. I'll show you how. You just have to go ahead and do public static event action, and it's going to give you an error because I have to add the system namespace, right? So have the system namespace, and then I'm going to create a public static event action, and we can call this, what do we want to pass? We want to pass a string, right? We want to pass a string and say, hey, I've been picked up. And we can also send an int and a string, right? And this is going to be called collect. So a good rule of thumb is to always have your events start with on. So on collectible picked up would be your event. So it's as simple as this, right? So this script, all it's doing is the moment uh, the script is picked up, I'm going to say, hey, I've been picked up, and I'm going to like emit that event out. There's nothing else that the script is going to do. It's going to emit that event and then destroy itself, and that's the like the full duty of this particular script and this game object. You can attach it to any kind of collectible you want, and when it's picked up, it's going to emit an event and say, hey, I've been picked up. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is go back to Unity. I want to step into this prefab and then mark this as a trigger, right? So that's when you will know that so when a sphere collider is marked as a trigger, you know that we can use on trigger enter in our script to kind of pass the message back, right? We're going to go ahead and do that. So for the method for that is a pre-built Unity function or a method called on trigger enter, and you just hit that, you get a collider. Now what we're going to do is test if the triggering object is player. How we're going to do that actually is if you go ahead and see it while it compiles, step out of the prefab. If you go ahead and see the player armature, you see that the tag is player. So we can check for the tag and we can go ahead and then we're getting a collider that is passing in other as an object or a parameter. I'm going to go ahead and say if other dot, and the best way of doing this is compare tag. I know that there's an older way of doing this, which even I've forgotten right now. But if you're doing it any other way, stop doing it and just use compare tag. This is the recommended way uh, by Unity for performance reasons. And I'm going to pass in the tag of player, right? And what this says is, I'm just first going to debug.log it, saying player has entered collider, right? So this way we quickly check if the player has entered the collider or not. And we get this debug log when we play to just check if the whole trigger is working. Let's go ahead and try that. Yeah, so if you can see, I don't know how well you can see, but you can quickly see the player has entered pickup collider, kind of shows up here. Now, if you want to kind of extend this, we can do this dot name and kind of actually get the details of the specific game object that the player is entering, right? That's a quick tip for people there. So you can see here quickly, oops, that the player has entered collectible 2, player has entered collectible 1, and so on and so forth, which is like a needle trick. All right, so we know that the triggers are working. We know that the player is kind of entering the trigger. Now, what we want to do is when the player enters the trigger, we want to emit an event saying, hey, I have been picked up. So we will pass a message and an int, right? So we don't actually need to pass a message, but I just want to show you the two things that you can do, right? So I'm going to say on collectible picked up, that's the event. And I'm going to put an operator here to kind of check for null. This is always a good method to kind of follow so that uh, you avoid causing any issues in the future, and say invoke, right? And when I do invoke, what I'm going to do is this dot name, which can actually be shortened to name, which is like basically the game object's name. And excuse me, I'm going to also pass a message saying object has been picked up, right? This is, oh, okay, sorry. My bad. So yeah, uh, I'm just gonna pass. I don't know why I put int there, but I'm just gonna pass. Maybe we can have like uh, let's say name has been picked up, right? That's the string parameter that we're referring to here. And for some reason, I put an int there, but we can probably say private int. Uh, let's call this value, right? Collectible value. And what we can do through that, I'm going to serialize this. So serialize field basically helps you have a private int. Normally use a private int if it's specific to this script and it's not really needed anywhere. And then I'm going to pass in the value of the collectible here. Okay. So let us go ahead and give the collectible a value. So we can give this collectible, say 5. We can give this variable 10, like a 3, like a 9. So what I'm basically doing is I'm invoking this event which has these two parameters, which is an int and a string. And in the int, I'm passing in the collectible value. So this helps kind of give scores to your, values to your crystals if you have crystal pickups, and then you can manipulate that data to kind of increment the crystals at or pickups at the other end, right? So I'm also sending a string message here, and I'm saying name. Name is nothing but it takes the name of the object that has been attached to this event, to this game object, and then I'm just passing in a message saying has been picked up, right? I can even just pass in the name. We don't need the actual details has been picked up, but just leaving it in there. All right. So now that I've done that, the next thing I want to do is destroy game object, because I want the pickup to kind of disappear once it's done, right? All right. So let me just kind of just move this again to name. All right. So again, to kind of summarize, I have like one script on a collectible. I am creating a public static event action, and I'm passing in two parameters, which is int and string, and calling it on collectible picked up. And whenever I want to trigger it, which is when the player is entering the trigger, I'm doing an on collectible pickup dot invoke and passing in the parameters, right? And then I'm destroying the game object. Cool. Let's go back and actually see if this works. If everything went well, it should actually work. I'll leave it on console, right? So I'm going to run around. Oops. And player has entered pickup collider collectible underscore 02, right? So far, yeah, looks like the event is being emitted, right? So, and I'm getting the names. Oh, actually, we're not testing for the event being emitted. Let's go ahead and do that. So let me create like, now here's where I kind of like to create a object called game logic. And under that, I'm just going to put empty and call this collectible manager, or we can call it collectibles pickup manager. And all that this object is going to do is listen to those events that are coming from this particular script and read the data and debug.log it for now, right? So let's go ahead and add it, collectibles pickup manager, and create that script. And we'll wait for it to kind of compile and move this actually in scripts again. Yeah, get rid of this because I'm not going to be using these two lifecycle methods. Now, the way you subscribe to an event is by using the on enable and on disable method. I know in the beginning when we start off coding for Unity, we just ignore these other events. We always use start and update and put if condition and all that. But a good way of kind of doing these things is by an inbuilt method that Unity has, which is called on enable. So basically, on enable gets called, I think, after a wake, but before start, if I'm not mistaken. That is, so don't quote me on that. Do check out the API, but on enable basically gets called when that object is enabled. On disable gets called when that object is disabled. So let's go ahead and do on enable and create an on disable, right? So here what we're going to do is subscribe to collectible pickup notification, right? And here what we're going to do is unsubscribe to notification. Now, if you remember, I said the event system is like the social media where you have one influencer who's kind of talking and broadcasting a message and people are subscribing. So this is like an influencer. I'm just going to say I am an awesome influencer and say here I'm going to put I am an awesome subscriber to influencers, or whatever, just to, I guess, be funny or try to be funny. Cool. Now, the way you subscribe to an event is, if you remember, we made this a public static event. Now, what that means is it can be accessed from other scripts. This particular action can be accessed from other scripts. So all you need to do is you need to call that particular script. So saying collectible pickup dot on collectible picked up, right? It's as simple as that. It just shows up the on collectible picked up, and then you need to do a plus equals to and have a method here, right? So what I'm going to do is we need to decide how we're going to handle the data that is coming in first. Now we know that we're getting an int and we know that we're getting a string from that. So we need to create a method here. Let me comment this out for now. We need to create a method here saying public void, it can just be, yeah, let's leave it as public void for now, and call it handle on collectible pickup. Okay, let's see. I like to kind of call it on collectible picked up and handle on collectible picked up. So we're going to say handle. I like to add the method, the word handle to it, because we're handling a non collectible pickup, and we're going to go ahead and just put a debug.log here. But before we do that, we also have to pass in parameters. Now we know that we're getting an int and a string here. So your method here definitely needs to have two parameters here. So we're going to call it collectible value and string collectible details. I'm actually going to go ahead and remove this has been picked up, because we can do that later on, right? We just want, it's always good to kind of separate any kind of messaging and all from here, and just have like the basic, say, collectible value and the important info here, and then you manipulate it however you want in another area, right? So I'm going to say debug.log and yeah, I was just thinking we could also say player has picked up the collider, because we have other here, but let's not do that right now. Cool. Say player has picked up, and we're going to say plus, let me just close this before we continue, the collectible details plus so what I want to do is say the player has picked up X amount of this, right? So which will be your value. So I'm going to say player has picked up plus collectible value plus, and kind of give a space there just to kind of format the string for now. And I'm going to add the collectible details. So if everything goes well, we're broadcasting this action with the parameters. We're just saying player has entered. Let me remove pickup collider and just call this collider. And we're going to say player has, and we are listening to those two events here. And we're going to kind of handle those incoming values. The action is going to be sending us the collectible value and the collectible details, and we're going to handle that inside here by just putting a debug log, right? So now let's go back to actually subscribing to it and say a collectible pickup dot on collectible pickup plus equals to handle on collection pickup, and just close that. You don't need to put these method brackets here because it's just you're just subscribing to that event. So now if you didn't have, let me just show you what happens if you didn't have these two parameters here. You see it's going to cause an error there because it's going to say no overload for handle on collection pickup matches delegate action int and string. Now if you realize we were passing int and string there, so when you don't have a method that handles these two, you're going to get that error. So just make a note of that point. It's very important that you don't scratch your head and wonder why the video is not working for you. So now what I'm going to do here is, it's always good when you subscribe to an event, while on disable, you're going to unsubscribe to the event. So I'm going to do collectible pickup dot on collectible pickup minus equal to, the way you unsubscribe from an event is by doing a minus equals to and handle on collection pickup. So the method remains the same. Here you're just kind of subscribing to it. You're subscribing to this method and kind of calling this subscribing to this event and calling this method. You're unsubscribing here, right? Done. So if all goes well, whenever I go into a collider, I need to get the value and I need to get the collectible details. So let's go ahead and test that, right? Cool. So what I'm going to do is go and hit the play button. And quick tip for you, if you double click the game window, you will always go into full screen. So let's run around and pick up something. Now, if you see, actually, let me just, oopsies. Let me just go ahead and not do full screen so we can see the logs real time. So, okay, so I walked into the first collectible and you see player has picked up 10 collectible underscore O2. So basically it's saying player has picked up 10 numbers of collectible O2, right? So we can actually make that debug log a little more number of, and maybe just put an S here because it's irritating. Yeah. All right, so let's hit play again and see what happens. Okay, let's run around, pick up. Yeah, so player has picked up 10 collectible O2s. Player has picked up 5 collectible O1s, and player has picked up 9 collectible O3s. Player has collected up 3 collectible O3s. Is that because we call the other one collect? So we have collectible O3. What you can also do is, just to make life easier, say crystals, maybe shards, maybe coins, and health potions. And so the good thing about making dynamic is the moment you change these game objects, now remember the prefab isn't changing, it's just the game object names that are changing. So if I do this, what's going to happen is the moment I go pick something up, it's saying player has picked up 10 shards, player has picked up 5 crystals, player has picked up 9 health potions. I should have made that health potion, but yeah. Anyway, so, and then you go pick that up and say player has picked up 3 coins. find this crystal, this. So uh, you know, a stupid thing. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, we can do a lot of stuff to just dynamically detect singular, plural, but yeah. So you see that at no point am I actually putting a reference between these two scripts, right? I'm emitting an action from here and I'm listening to another action here. I don't have like any inspector script going on. Like this collectible pickup manager doesn't have any reference to these crystals and all that. And you're still seeing the data coming through. Now we can take this one step further and show how we can add to the whole thing. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how we can have multiple subscribers, right? So right now we have a collectibles pickup manager that's handling it, which in turn can kind of send a message out itself, right? So let's actually do that, right? So I'm sending a message from collectible pickup to collectibles pickup manager, and I am also sending a message out to my friends to about this cool influencer, right? So what I'm going to do is create a public static action, public static event action, and oops, again using system and call this public static event action. And maybe we can, what do we want to do? We want to pass in a string. Okay, let's just pass in a string and say, oops, no, not actually pass in a string. Okay, string and say on collectible pickup received or whatever, right? This on collectible pickup received. And what we're going to do is the moment we get this message that so and so is happening, we're going to now send a message out for someone else to listen and say, hey, by the way, apparently this person has picked up the crystal. I want you to know this and I want you to display it on screen. So maybe we will listen to it from a canvas and actually display the message. So we can actually format this here and just say, hey, so this person has picked up the message. We have the dynamic data related to it. So let's go ahead and write string message is equal to, and just copy this whole thing that we debug.logging. Okay. And then what we're going to do is on collectible pickup received dot invoke and put this message in there. So now we're taking the details of the event that came in from another broadcaster, and we're kind of messaging this out to whoever is listening, saying, hey, by the way, apparently this person has picked up the crystal, right? So now that is done. Let's go back to Unity. I'm going to create like an empty, call it player canvases, and go ahead and create the UI and create a canvas item. All right. So we're going to call this maybe player HUD, and we're going to move this change this thing to scale with screen size and maybe give it a reference of 1080p. Make sure that my screen is set to 1080p here. All right. So once that is done, what I'm going to do is do expand and leave it at that. I'm going to create a UI panel. Always a good idea, depending on how you want to organize it. So hard panel, and I'm going to decrease the alpha on this. Cool. So let's go ahead and create a text mesh pro item. And I always like to kind of call these text mesh pro items with a T underscore. So that helps me kind of search through later on and say collectible pickup notification, right? So I'm doing a collectible pickup notification and saying this is a standard. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of anchor this maybe to top, right? And yeah, so let's just actually do it in the bottom, right? And put this to auto size. And okay, the weird thing is, okay, I was wondering why the text wasn't showing up, and because the new project, this import TMP essentials, was kind of popped up in my other screen. That's funny. I was like, oops, why is the text not showing up? All right, so let's just call this collectibles notify. Great. And maybe we will just center line this. I'm not breaking my head too much about design. I'm sorry. Kind of, this is a very rough thing. All right. So now that we have this, I'm going to now. So a player canvas is one of the kind of listeners. So I'm going to go ahead and just attach canvas manager, right? Sorry, player HUD, and just maybe call it. Or what we can do is we can rename this HUD panel. Let's call this pickup notifications panel, and we will try and make sure that we call this pickup notifications canvas, right? And I'm going to attach a script to this to kind of listen to what is happening. So actually, I'm kind of complicated. Collectibles canvas, as simple as that, right? Collectible. I get stuck on these names. Sorry. I'm really sorry. Now I'm happy with it. Cool. Let's now kind of add a script, say collectibles canvas manager notification canvas manager. Okay. Anyways, for some reason I can't think of a better name. So now that we have that, now what the role of this collectibles canvas is going to be is listen to a particular broadcast and then update the data in real time. Now I can either listen. Oh, that's a good point. I need to kind of uh, move this into script. All right. So there are two things you can do. You can either listen to it. You can. So we have the collectible pickup broadcasting something. Now on my collectibles notification canvas, I can listen to both. I can listen to the broadcast from the object itself, or I can listen to this interim collectible pickup manager class that is kind of broadcasting the event. So it depends on you if how you want to organize it. It's a very flexible kind of system. So you can have one system talking, you can have A talking to B and B talking to C, or you can have A talking directly to A, B, C, D. Normally it depends on what you want to achieve. I like having this collectibles pickup manager in between to process data and send out messages. It's like a referee who is sitting in kind of a coach kind of class, but it really does, it's not required. So you can just have like A talking to like 10,000. Think of the collectibles manager as Instagram and the A as the collectibles as influencers. I'm really going far with this analogy. And then all the other people listening to Instagram or something like that. That's a stupid example, but yeah. So let's now go ahead, and what I'm going to do is, I'm sorry about this weird drilling noise that's happening. It's damn irritating. If you can hear it, I'm sorry about it. Cool. So what I'm saying is I'm going to create a private canvas collectible pickup notification canvas. I know I'm naming it differently. Actually, let's just go collectibles notification canvas. Okay. So I'm just referencing the canvas. Now, let me just quickly show you what I'm doing and explain why that is. And say on enable, the way we will listen to that. And let's have an on disable, right? Before that, I'm going to go ahead and do an awake method. And what I'm going to do is, instead of having to manually assign this through a serialization field, since this script is on the same canvas object, that's why I like to add the script on the canvas itself. So since the script is on the canvas, I can find the canvas. Now, a good rule of thumb is to not write a script that disables the game object and enables the game object. This is a recommended method by Unity to kind of save on performance and not cause like memory leaks and stuff and unnecessary garbage collection. So what they recommend is that you just leave the game object on and then turn the canvas on and off, which is a more performant way of doing stuff. So that's what I'm doing here. So as you can see, I'm just going to turn off this canvas for now. And we're going to find the canvas. So say awake, get component, and you say canvas, as simple as that. So what this method does is it will find the first canvas item attached to this script, which is basically with this game object, right? And that's going to be your I forgot to do this. Yeah, and that's going to be your collectible notification canvas, because it's the canvas component is attached to this game object. So we need to assign it. So say collectible, say collectible notification canvas equal to get component canvas, right? So I don't know why it's still giving me an error that this field is not being detected. Okay, that's fine. So on enable, what let's write a method, right? So we're going to write a method saying display, oops, say public void display collectibles notification, and that's going to take in a parameter a string notification message, right? And debug dot log notification, oops, notification message, right? So and then we're going to go ahead and subscribe to the collectibles pickup manager like we did last time. Say collectible collectible pickup manager dot on collectible pickup received plus equals to display collectibles display collectibles notification. And like last time, we're going to go ahead and unsubscribe to this particular method, and that's all good. Now if you notice, we had turned off the canvas component, so I'm going to go ahead and create another method here saying public void let's just keep it public void and display canvas not display collectibles notification canvas. And what this is going to do is handle the activation of this. So we say collectibles canvas dot enabled equal to true. And so what I'm saying here is the moment I get a message on an event, I'm going to go ahead and first display the collection notification canvas, and then I'm going to we will eventually write a script to kind of display that message there. For now, let's just make sure that that canvas pops up. And if I'm going to go back into Unity and just hit play now, ideally when I walk into this pickup collider, it should pop up the text on screen, and there you go. So the moment I did that, you see how on enable works, right? So you got the system on, and then you can have like a coroutine that kind of maybe turns the notification off after a few seconds. It depends on how you want to do it. Cool. So this is working. When I walk into something, the canvas is getting activated, and this is how you turn on and turn off the canvas, right? All right, so let's go ahead and actually update that data. And for this, what we're going to do, since this is the collection manager itself, we will have a reference to the text item within it. So I'm going to go ahead and say private tmp underscore text collectible notification display or notification text, right? And I need to add in using tm pro for this error to go away. So what we're going to do here is the moment I get that message, I'm going to turn on the display, and then I'm going to say collectibles notification text dot set text, and then we're going to pass in the notification message, right? I don't know why this thing came. Yeah, so we're going to take a reference to this particular text. Now you can actually do a collectible notification text dot equals to get component in children tmp underscore text, and this should work. So you don't have to actually give it a reference. Let's go ahead and see if this works, right? All right, so we're here, we're running in, and there you go. So you see, the moment I walked into it, what the script is basically doing is, remember, so the collectible pickup is sending a message saying, hey, uh, I've been picked up. This is my collectible value. This is my name, and then I'm going to destroy myself. And then the collectible pickup manager is taking that data and listening and subscribing and unsubscribing to it and listening to the data and saying, hey, by the way, player has picked up a collectible of collectible values so and so. And then what it in turn is doing is sending out another message and saying, hey, by the way, this person has picked up uh, these collectibles of so and so type. And then what is happening is I have another observer on the actual script. I mean, on the actual collectibles like canvas, just the display, it's separate. At no point is my notification canvas ever linked to my initial collection collectible pickup canvas, right? I mean, a collectible pickup item. So, but it's sending a message across now saying, hey, I've been picked up. And the moment you walk into the trigger, it destroys itself. And now you see the listener is actually listening to the event and saying player has picked up 5 crystals, player has picked up 9 health potions, and player has picked up 3 coins, right? So we can actually make this a little more dynamic. And what happens is, so whenever you do change a parameter here, you will also need to kind of update it in your methods there. So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to do that here. I'm going to put another string here. So you can pass in another string, and you say on collectible pickup, collectible value, and the first string will be the name, and the second thing will be other.name. So what other.name basically does is, because we're getting an on trigger event, the collider is passing us the information of what this other object is, and that's how we're comparing other.compare tag. Other is nothing but the player. So you're taking the other collider information and comparing the tag and seeing if it's a player. Then you're kind of then saying, oh, okay, this person is the player, please do this action. So we're taking that other information, and you can just get the name of the other's game object by saying other.name, and we're passing that information back. Now, the moment I hit save on this, if I actually go back, yeah, cool. If I actually go back to Unity and try to run this, it should give me an error, because if you remember, we haven't actually where's my console? For some reason I'm not able to view my console. It's here. Yeah, so if you view the errors, you can actually see that no overload for handle exists for match delegate action. And now there are three parameters: there's int, string, and string, right? So we need to go back. You can actually just double click here and go back here. Now you'll have to update these methods to make sure that they in, include that particular parameter that is coming in. So whatever message you're sending parameters, the kind of method signature here has to have the same, number of parameters and the type of parameters. So I'm going to add another string here and call it uh, player name, right? Yeah, the player name. All right. So, and then I'm going to use this here player. Instead of saying player, I'm going to say player name plus has picked up, so on. So we're getting that dynamic information from the backend. It's still giving me an error for some reason. Action int string. Huh, that's interesting. I do have three values here, so okay, yeah. So I don't know why. I think that was just visual scripting being funny. Okay, interesting. So I'm also going to go ahead. Okay, now that I have this uh string, because I'm not changing the message that is going out here as string, I don't need to update the other script. Let me actually go ahead and hit play and actually see if this works. Yeah, so it says player has entered collider shard, and then say player armature has picked up 10 shards. Now, if you want to know what that means, you see the player game object, if you realize before, was called player armature. So it's reading that information and saying player armature has picked up 10 shards. But it's only debug.logging that it's not actually sending the message. So because I haven't updated the message here, so say let's go ahead and say player name plus has picked up collectible value. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and change this to the lazy Indian techie, right? Do that. And then when we do hit play, what's ideally going to happen is it's going to display a message saying the lazy Indian techie has picked up 10 shards. Isn't that cool? And say 5 crystals, lazy Indian techie has picked up 9 health potions, and the lazy Indian techie has picked up so and so items, 3 coins. So this is like the beauty of event system, right? Where you're not actually listening. I mean, you're not actually tightly coupling items together. You're just kind of listening to, you're subscribing to an event that an object is emitting, and you're updating a canvas. And if you see, excuse me, if you see, we have like two different items. There are two different listeners. One is the collectible pickup manager, and one is the collectibles notification canvas. These are two separate systems that are listening to, messages from each other and performing certain actions when that happens. So uh, you can also speak directly from like one item to multiple items, like I said. And this is like the beauty of event systems. So going forward, I hope you you people kind of uh, take this and kind of start building your systems out with more event systems. That way, what happens is when you do have a lot of stuff going on in your game, you don't get tied on by references. You saw I haven't assigned anything in inspector, right? There's absolutely no item that I've assigned in the inspector except for the fact that I'm kind of giving this health potion like its own collectible value. That's literally the only thing. If you look at the other canvases, yeah, you don't have to give a reference of the game manager to this canvas and all that. So that's the beauty of event systems. And I hope this made sense. If you have any questions, do leave a question in the comment section, or just let me know if you didn't understand something, or you want me to go in depth about something, or if you have any feedback on like letting me know how this needs to be done or improving on it. And if I got something wrong, do let me know. But I hope this was helpful. I hope you're able to implement this. I'm sorry about the random noise that popped in. I hope my noise filter can cut that out, but if not, I'm really, really sorry. And Yeah, thanks for watching. Again, if you like this video, do hit the like button. I know it's been a little long-ish. It's almost been an hour, and I didn't intend it for it to be an hour, but I hope this is helpful. And yeah, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.